My girlfriend suddenly noticed that I had changed. I no longer took the initiative to text her. I no longer checked in on her every day with care and concern. Even when I received her messages, I would only reply with a few simple words. She panicked. She started messaging me first. She began to spend entire days distracted, just waiting for a reply from me. She started caring about my condition, trying to understand my life. Only then did she suddenly realize I was merely treating her the same way she once treated me. Chapter 1. My name is George. I'm 26 this year, working as a programmer at an internet company. My girlfriend's name is Willow. She has a cold, distant kind of beauty. When her eyelids droop slightly, she looks at people as if even sparing them an extra glance is too much effort. I used to think that was sophistication. Now sometimes I wonder if it's just impatience. That night, it was already close to 10 p.m. when I finished working overtime. Sitting at my desk, I held my phone and sent Willow a message. Did you get home? 1 minute. No reply. I sent another. How was today? Were the kids a bit better behaved? Willow works as an English teacher at a training center, dealing with a bunch of unruly kids every day. I get that she's tired. I really do. The screen stayed silent. Beneath the chat box, there was only a faint gray line, typing, flickering on and off, like it was deliberately keeping me hanging. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Busy. Just that one word. I stared at it for 2 seconds. Then I deleted the half-typed, get some rest early, along with that small, lingering urge to care. I flipped my phone face down on the desk, nudged my mouse aside, and clicked on the game icon. The moment I put on my headphones, the world finally turned into something familiar. The login screen popped up, and my friends list lit up in a chain of notifications. George, you in? We need a jungler. The voice message was from David, my college classmate and now coworker. He sounded as excited as if he'd just gotten his annual bonus. I pressed the voice key. Cue me. Invite. As soon as the team formed, David started yelling, "Stay sharp today. All right, don't let them bulldoze from your jungle straight to the base again." I chuckled, leaned back in my chair, and said, "Relax. I'm in a decent mood today. Even if we get wrecked, I won't flame anyone." The moment I said it, I could hear how off that sounded. Back when I was in a bad mood, the keyboard was always the innocent victim. Now, I'd gotten so used to people being distant that I didn't even have the energy to get mad anymore. The match started. I farmed jungle camps while occasionally glancing at the phone beside my keyboard. When the screen stayed lit, I used to expect a notification to pop up. Later, I just set it to turn off after 10 seconds. No point setting myself up for disappointment. We lost the first game. Their jungler was too aggressive. David cursed. Was that guy a pro smurfing or something? Whatever. Next game. Right before the second match started, my phone buzzed. I thought it was a system message and tapped it open quickly. It was Willow. "Don't stay up too late," followed by a cold, generic smiling emoji. Not the kind with hearts or layered with cute little bunnies and cherry blossoms. The emojis Willow sent always felt like she was politely completing some kind of social obligation. I looked at the message and curled my lips slightly. "Okay," I replied with a single word, then casually sent a sleepy yawning emoji. No response after that. The chat went quiet, like the message had been thrown into the deep sea. David shouted, "What are you spacing out for? Incoming, river." I put my headphones back on and guided my character toward the river. The rhythm of my fingers hitting the keyboard was drowned out by the sound effects in my headset. Farming, hiding in bushes, ganking. After 2 wins in a row, it was already close to 12:30 a.m. I exited the game and let my hand rest on the mouse for a moment. The phone screen was dark, like a block of ice. I picked it up and checked. The notification bar was completely clean. No, go to bed early. No, let me know when you get home. Not even a single missed call from her. I suddenly felt like laughing. It wasn't even sadness, just that cold calm that comes after you finally see things clearly. Leaning back in my chair, I did a quick mental tally. Over the past 6 months, most conversations were started by me. Most apologies were made by me. Even after arguments, the first move to make up was almost always mine. Willow was always like this. If you wanted to talk, you talked. If you didn't, she wouldn't ask. As if in this relationship, the more one person pulled away, the lighter they felt. I stood up and shut down my computer. The office was nearly empty, except for me and the hum of the cleaning lady's vacuum. At the elevator, I took out my phone again. Almost unconsciously, I opened WeChat and sent Willow another message. "I'm off work." The moment I sent it, I found it ridiculous myself, like submitting a report in advance, hoping to get a "you worked hard," or even just a simple "mm." The elevator doors closed in front of me. My phone buzzed. Got it. Still those same words, so economical she didn't even bother with punctuation. I stared at the message for a few seconds, then slipped my phone back into my pocket. This time, I didn't reply. The night wind downstairs was a little cold, but it felt more real than the glow of a phone screen. I walked toward the parking lot, spinning my car keys between my fingers, and suddenly, I realized something very simple. At some point, I had been the only one fighting the team fight in this relationship. On the other side, my teammate had long since switched herself to spectator mode. Chapter 2. The kind of companionship she wanted could only exist according to her script. The next day was Saturday. For once, I didn't have to work overtime. I only crawled out of bed after 10. The curtains were still closed, leaving the room dim. My phone screen glowed faintly on the bedside table, lying there quietly all morning without a single unread notification. I reached over, picked it up, and unlocked it with a swipe of my thumb. The chat with Willow was still stuck on last night's got it. Above that, it was a long string of me asking questions, and her replies, concise, like answers to multiple choice questions. Staring at the chat history, I suddenly realized something. Lately, our conversations felt like customer service and a user. I asked the questions, she provided efficient solutions. I lay in bed for a while, then still sent her a message. Are you off today? Want to go out for a meal? The message showed, sent. I placed the phone beside my pillow and went to wash up. As cold water hit my face, I looked at myself in the mirror a little longer. The dark circles had faded a bit. I had shaved clean last night. I looked, more or less, like a normal young man. Back when we used to go on dates, I would plan everything the night before, where to go, how to get there, checking reviews, wondering if Willow would like it. Now, even deciding whether to go out depended on whether she gave me a one-word permission. When I came out after brushing my teeth, the phone screen was lit. My chest tightened slightly as I tapped it open. She replied, I have classes in the afternoon, and meetings with parents in the evening. There was a small, helpless emoji at the end. Instinctively, I typed, then I can pick you up. Want to grab supper after your class? The cursor blinked a few times in the input box. Then I deleted the whole line. Clean. In the end, I only sent 2 words. You've worked hard. This time, there wasn't even a got it in return. The chat fell silent again. In the living room, the only sound was the low hum of the refrigerator, along with that vague emptiness inside me that I couldn't quite put into words. I tossed my phone onto the couch, turned on my computer, and opened the game again. When the login screen popped up, I suddenly felt very clear-headed. A brutally honest thought surfaced. I'm not playing games to escape. I just realized that at least there are teammates who actually need me. The moment I logged in, David sent a voice message. George, up this early? Did the sun rise in the west? I glanced at the time. It was already 11:30. I replied, queuing with an old man like you, doesn't that deserve getting up early? I sounded normal. I could even joke. David clicked his tongue. You weren't normal last night. Your girlfriend giving you the cold shoulder again? My fingers paused on the mouse. No. I hesitated, then added. She's just busy. She's always busy. David didn't hold back. You ever notice, if you don't text her first, you two could go a whole week without saying a word? I stayed silent for a few seconds. The game's loading bar crawled slowly across the screen. That's still a kind of relationship, I said. A weak excuse, even to my own ears. David let out a cold laugh. That's called a single-player game. The sound of his keyboard clattering through the mic was like background percussion for my self-deception. I didn't respond. The match was found, and we entered the game. By the 3rd round, a stranger added me as a friend. Your jungle was amazing. Appa, want to duo regularly? The profile picture showed a girl, probably in her early 20s, smiling brightly. I didn't accept right away. David, on the other hand, got excited. Look at you, online romance knocking at your door. I shot back. We're adults. Don't throw around the word romance. That's how trouble starts. She just complimented you twice. Why so tense, George? David teased. Does your Ice Queen girlfriend ever compliment you? That question hit straight. I replayed our recent meetings in my mind. Willow would say things like, pretty good, not bad, that works. But those sounded like overall evaluations of a student, not genuine affection for a boyfriend. I didn't answer David. I simply accepted the friend request, then quietly placed her onto my mental pre-block list. Not blocking immediately, just setting a boundary for myself. I knew exactly what I was doing. In a relationship where there's no response, it's easy to get carried away by even the smallest bit of warmth. I didn't want to end up looking that pathetic. Chapter 3. At 2 p.m., I logged off the game. My eyes were sore and swollen, and my stomach felt like it was cramping from hunger. There was still an unopened pack of instant noodles in the kitchen from last night. As I tore open the packaging, my phone screen lit up. The parents just left. It was Willow. I might be home late tonight. I looked at those 2 messages, and a completely inappropriate question popped into my mind. When she says home, does she mean the place she shares with her mom or the relationship we're in? I carried the bowl of noodles to the living room, sat on the couch, and before even taking a bite, I started typing. Do you want a video call tonight? If you're not going out, I can finish things early on my side. This time, there was no reply for a long while. The noodles had gone soggy, clumping together when I picked them up with my chopsticks. Most of the steam had already faded. I took a bite. The noodles were soft and mushy, the seasoning overly salty. Finally, the screen lit up. She replied, "Let's see, I might be very tired." I stared at that sentence and suddenly realized how universally useful those words were. Let's see, I might be very tired. We'll talk later. You're overthinking it. In this relationship, those phrases were like a firewall. Once sent, they blocked off every emotion that required a response. I flipped my phone back onto the table and didn't reply immediately. This time, I wanted to try something. If I stopped asking, stopped coaxing, stopped initiating, would she notice something was off? The day passed quickly. At 10 p.m., I lay in bed, scrolling lightly on my phone. The chat window was still stuck on that line. Let's see. Willow didn't send, "Why haven't you texted me?" Didn't ask, "What did you do today?" Not a single question. I suddenly found it a little ridiculous. I picked up my phone, exited the chat, and opened the contact name, Willow. The string of heart emojis after her name, I had added them casually more than a year ago when we first got together. I moved the cursor there and deleted them. Only the clean, bare name remained. At that moment, I realized something very clearly. I didn't suddenly become distant. I was just pulling myself back to a normal place. What was truly abnormal was how, before this, I had been so low in the relationship that I treated all her impatience and busyness as part of love. For the first time, I admitted it seriously. I get tired too. Monday morning, when the alarm went off, my phone screen was completely clean. No messages. I stared at the ceiling for over 10 seconds and made what felt like a pretty big decision for myself. Today, I wouldn't reach out to Willow first. Not out of spite, more like a small experiment. To see, if I didn't say, "Good morning," didn't ask, "What are you doing?" would this relationship end up like a teammate who goes AFK in a game, with the system prompting, "Connection lost." After washing up, I went downstairs and bought an Americano. On the subway to work, packed shoulder to shoulder, I stood by the door, took out my phone, and instinctively opened her chat again. The last message still read, "Let's see, I might be very tired." That sentence, "Me too," had circled in my mind dozens of times. In the end, I never typed it once. At the office, it was morning meetings, code reviews, requirement discussions, endless nonsense piling up. At 12:30 p.m., I unmuted my phone for once and let it sit quietly beside my keyboard. 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock. I thought I could fully focus on work, but every so often, I still found myself glancing at the screen, until 2:15, when the phone buzzed. I grabbed it instinctively. Not a message, just a system update notification. I let out a small laugh, tossed the phone back onto the desk, and booked a meeting room for a quick nap. Leaning the recliner back, I closed my eyes. Right before I fell asleep, I suddenly realized something. I'm actually busier than her now. But all this time, the one acting like a 24/7 on-call customer service rep has been me. Around 3 p.m., a front-end colleague came over to sync on an API. I lifted my head from a mess of chaotic logs. My phone screen was dark. When I picked it up, I was a little surprised to see an unread message. It said, "Why haven't you been talking today?" Sender, Willow. Chapter 4. The message had been sent 10 minutes ago. I stared at that line for a long time. A strange feeling hit me. Not touched, more like surprise. "So, you do notice," I replied with one word, "working." On the other end, typing, appeared almost immediately. She replied, "You used to say a few things even when you were at work." The sentence looked plain, but in her usual cold tone, it was already a very direct complaint. I thought for a few seconds, then I typed, line by line, "I've been thinking about whether I should give you more space. It feels like I've always been the one reaching out." The cursor blinked twice. I added another line, "I get tired too." This time, I didn't delete it. I sent it. She went silent for nearly half an hour. In that half hour, I fixed the same bug 3 times. While mentally drafting possible replies for her, I imagined things like, "Aren't you being a bit harsh? Why are you so sensitive all of a sudden? Are you overthinking again?" Instead, when the phone finally buzzed, there was only one line, "Let's meet tonight and talk." Below it was a location pin, the Japanese restaurant near the mall she often went to. Then another message, "I've made a reservation." I looked at those words and suddenly felt like laughing. That's just how Willow is. Talking about feelings is difficult for her, but once she decides to face it, she handles it like making a plan. Even discussing a relationship feels like scheduling a lesson. On my way home after work, I deliberately stopped by to change into a clean shirt. In the elevator mirror, I looked presentable. Just that hint of fatigue in my eyes, it couldn't be hidden. When I arrived at the restaurant, Willow was already seated inside. Her hair was tied in a low ponytail. She wore a light gray knit sweater, sleeves rolled up slightly. A workbook lay open beside her, with a red pen tucked in the middle. When she saw me, she looked up and glanced at her watch. "You're on time," she said. Her tone was flat, unreadable. I pulled out a chair and sat down, placing my coat beside me. "You booked for 6:30, right? It's 6:28 now," I said. 2 minutes early. The corner of her lips moved slightly, a rare attempt at a joke. The waiter came to take our order. Before, I would always ask her, "Do you want this? Didn't you like that one last time?" Today, I just picked up the menu, ordered 3 dishes I wanted, and handed the rest to her. "You can choose the rest," I said. After ordering, the table fell silent. At the next table, a couple was quietly discussing where to go over the weekend. Another table of coworkers was talking about their boss. Our table felt like a muted window. Finally, Willow spoke first. "Were you serious about what you said earlier?" She didn't beat around the bush. I knew she meant, "I get tired too." I nodded. "I was." She asked, "Do you think I make you tired?" Willow picked up her glass of water, her fingers resting lightly against the glass, her movements unhurried. "I don't argue with you often. I don't throw tantrums," she said. Her gaze stayed on the table. "I'm just not very good at chatting." "Chatting isn't the point," I said. I looked at her. "The point is, in this relationship, I always feel like I'm trying to keep a silent chat room alive." Willow frowned slightly. "So you want me to talk more?" "It's not about sending more emojis," I said. I paused, trying to make myself clear. "Willow, I respect that you're tired, busy, or don't feel like talking, but I hope there are moments when you reach out to me too. Not just me asking how your day was and you replying, 'It's fine,' but you actually want to share something with me." As I said that, I realized my voice had gone a little hoarse. Maybe the air conditioning was too strong. Willow listened quietly. After I finished, her finger traced slowly around the rim of her glass. "I thought you didn't care about these things," she said softly. "Every time you said, 'It's fine, I understand,' I thought, that's just who you are." I smiled faintly. "That's because I wasn't being honest before. I was afraid saying it out loud would make me seem needy. But now I realize, not saying it is even worse." I looked at her. "I'm just a normal person. I also need to hear, 'You've worked hard.' I also need to feel like someone's thinking about me. I'm not a book you can just set aside whenever you're done with work." The words came out more direct than I expected, but this time, I didn't take them back. Silence settled over the table. Chapter 5. When the waiter brought over the sushi and udon, the tension in the air shifted slightly. "Let's eat first," Willow said. We lowered our heads and took a few bites. The soy sauce was a bit too strong, the wasabi sharp enough to sting. As I bit into the sushi, a small detail suddenly came to mind. She had once said she liked the salmon here. I had gone out of my way to compare several places, check reviews, and finally chose this one. Back then, she had only said lightly, "It's pretty fresh." That one sentence, I had replayed it in my mind for half a year. Halfway through the meal, Willow put down her chopsticks. "I'm really not someone who's good at expressing myself," she said. She looked at me, no longer avoiding my gaze. Growing up with my mom, I had to process all my emotions on my own. She believed that if you did well on a test, that was expected. If you did poorly, you should reflect on yourself. So later, in relationships, I never really learned how to compliment someone or affirm them. She paused, then added, "My exes all said I was like a block of ice." When she said exes, I didn't dwell on it. Adults have pasts. I wasn't unprepared. She spoke softly, "But you know what? You're the first person who said, 'I get tired too,' not because I'm too calm, but because I'm not warm enough. Everyone else just thought I was an easy, low-maintenance girlfriend. You're the first one who feels like the way I treat you isn't fair." She looked at me, and for the first time, there was a hint of careful consideration in her eyes. I asked, "What about you? What does fairness look like to you?" She said, "Fairness is," she thought for a moment, "you don't have to tell me every detail of your day. You don't have to report when you get home or what you ate. You can have your own world. But when something happens, you think of me first." She looked up at me. "For me, that's enough." I smiled faintly. "Then do you know what fairness looks like to me? I can understand that you're busy. I can give you space, but I hope that even if it's just one sentence a day, that sentence carries a bit of your own emotion, something you choose to give me. Not something that feels like completing a task. One message from you, one reply from me, like checking in for attendance. If that's all it is, I'd rather we not talk at all." In the middle of the table sat a plate of unfinished rolls. The silence was so deep that even the sound of chopsticks touching the plate felt loud. After a long while, Willow let out a quiet sigh. "I might not be able to become what you described, at least not anytime soon. I'm not the kind of girl who gets clingy, and I don't want to force myself." When she said that, her expression was still calm. I nodded. I know. So I'm not going to force you either. I held my glass, my knuckles slightly pale. I just want to tell you this. If you're more comfortable staying the way you are, that's fine. But I won't keep pouring all my energy forward like before. I'm going to take a step back, to a place where I won't feel so tired. As for whether we can still keep this relationship, that depends on whether, after we both step back, we can still see each other. After saying all that, I suddenly felt lighter. Not the kind of relief that comes from solving a problem. More like finally letting out a breath I had been holding for a long time. Willow looked at me quietly. After a while, she said softly, "Okay, then, let's try it this way for now." On the way back, I didn't walk her downstairs or linger like I used to. We parted at the subway entrance. I instinctively wanted to say, "Text me when you get home." The words reached my lips, but I swallowed them back down. As the subway doors closed, I saw through the glass that Willow lowered her head and lit up her phone. I didn't know who she was texting, and I didn't know whether the invisible thread between us had been loosened or pulled tighter, closer to snapping. But I knew one thing. George finally did something for once, for himself. As a responsible player, he no longer wandered the whole map alone, pinging signals for a teammate who wasn't even online. Chapter 6. I stopped replying instantly, and finally, she couldn't sit still anymore. Over the next week, the frequency of my chats with Willow visibly dropped. It wasn't the kind of sudden disappearance, more like going from constant notifications to essential updates only. I no longer sent a fixed "good morning" every day. I stopped asking, "Have you eaten?" at noon. Occasionally, I would send a message or two, like an interesting news article I came across, or a photo when I passed by that cake shop she liked. But if Willow only replied with something like, "Oh," or "not bad," I didn't follow up anymore. The messages just sat quietly in the chat box, like announcements posted in a work group that no one responds to. After work, I still played games. The difference was, on Willow's side, I no longer treated whether I was online as something that needed to be reported. That night, David and I queued up together. Just as the third match started, a WeChat notification popped up in the top right corner. "Willow, what are you doing?" Time, 9:05 p.m. I was farming my second round of jungle camps in the river. My fingers didn't move to open the message immediately. "George, don't zone out, you're gonna lose the crab," David shouted through voice chat. I laughed. Got it. A quick combo. I secured the river crab, then rotated mid and pulled off a clean gank. For the entire match, I didn't open WeChat. Not because I was deliberately ignoring her. Just one simple thought. I'm doing something that requires focus, and this thing isn't her. More than 20 minutes later, we won. Only when the results screen appeared did I unlock my phone. There was another message. "Willow, question mark question mark question mark." Time, 9:17 p.m. I glanced at it. My fingers paused briefly on the screen. Then I opened the chat and replied honestly. "Just finished a ranked match. You?" She stayed silent for a few minutes, then replied, "Preparing lessons." 2 minutes later, another message came. "You used to reply to me even when you were gaming." That sentence felt like a delayed arrow, slow, but it hit deep. Leaning back in my chair, I couldn't help but smile at myself. Before, the moment I saw her message, even in the middle of a team fight, I would instinctively reply, even if my teammates flamed me for going AFK. But now, for the first time, I seriously thought about it. In a relationship, why is it always me who has to split my attention? I typed. That match was busy, so I didn't check my phone. This might happen more often in the future. I don't want to be doing something else while also staying ready to reply instantly. It's exhausting. After sending that, I placed my phone face down on the desk. David called out, "You're playing well today. Come on, one more game." "I'll take a break," I said. Rubbing my eyes, I added, "Find someone else." As I got up to pour some water, my phone buzzed again. "Willow, you've been saying you're tired a lot lately." Another message followed. "You used to always say you understood me." Her replies came quickly, as if these words had been building up inside her for a long time, just waiting for someone to lift the lid. I leaned against the water dispenser, looking at the screen. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner and the occasional click from the printer. I typed slowly, "I do understand you. But I also need to learn to understand myself. Before, I only focused on your feelings. Now, I'm starting to pay attention to my own state too. I thought for a moment, then added, "This isn't me suddenly changing. I'm just finally saying things I never said before." She went silent for a long time, so long that I went back to my desk, sat down, opened my IDE, and fixed another line of error code. Then my phone buzzed. She replied, "Are you trying to imply that I'm selfish?" I stared at that sentence for a few seconds, then typed, "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating clearly that I don't want to be that self-sacrificing anymore. Whether you want to adjust is your choice." I'm not responsible for asking you to change. I'm only responsible for deciding whether I want to keep going like this. Chapter 7. When I sent that message, I was very calm. No trembling, no instant regret. I had a rare, concrete feeling. I'm resigning from a position where I've been working overtime indefinitely. This time, she replied quickly. You talking kind of strangely today. Did someone say something to you? I didn't know if it was instinct. When the status quo gets challenged, people don't first think, is there something wrong with me? They think, did someone teach you to act like this? Leaning back in my chair, I replied, no one. I just figured something out while playing a game. If a teammate goes AFK, I'll ping once or twice. If I ping too many times and they ignore me, I look for another way to win. If I keep guarding an AFK teammate, I'll lose badly. Silence on her end. This time, it lasted a full hour, until I got off work. As I was heading out, just as the elevator doors were about to close, my phone buzzed. She sent, so now you're comparing me to an AFK teammate. That's quite fitting. Followed by a cold, sarcastic smiley. I was alone in the elevator. My reflection in the mirror looked complicated. I didn't rush to explain. I replied, I'm talking about my own state. I'm reminding myself not to charge in alone all the time. If you want to log in, that's great. If you don't, I won't stand there waiting anymore. That's all. This time, she didn't reply. The phone screen stayed quiet, lighting up and dimming again, while the subway signal flickered on and off. After getting home, I logged in as usual. David was already waiting in the lobby. George, you're free tonight. Your Ice Queen girlfriend gave you a day off. Something like that, I said, putting on my headset. She's starting to think I'm acting strange. Strange how? I said. She thinks I've become someone who knows how to say no. As I spoke, I opened my friends list. That female player who had added me earlier was still there. Same profile picture, the girl with the bright smile. She had sent me a message in the afternoon. On lunch break, want to queue a couple games? I hadn't replied. Now, next to that message, there was a small question mark. I thought for a moment, then opened the chat and typed, sorry, I've been pretty busy lately. Probably won't be able to queue with you often. She replied almost immediately with a thumbs up. Got it. Do your thing. Games are for fun, don't turn them into a burden. I looked at those lines and suddenly felt a bit ironic. Even a stranger knew to say, don't make it a burden. Yet in real life, I had grown used to trapping myself in all kinds of invisible obligations. I didn't continue the conversation. I tapped on her profile and moved her into a group. Not blocked, just placed into a folder labeled strangers. After a few matches, it was already past 11. I came out of the shower and casually picked up my phone. There was a new unread message. Willow, are you still playing games tonight? Time, 11 p.m. I glanced at myself in the mirror. Water still dripping from my hair. I replied, just finished. What's up? She replied, I want to ask you something. If, for a period of time, I'm still like this, what would you do? I sat on the edge of the bed. The phone screen was the only light in the room, making my eyes ache a little. I replied, you mean still habitually not replying, rarely initiating, and using busy and let's see as defaults? She replied, more or less. I'll try to improve, but I don't want to promise that I'll become a completely different person. It felt like she sighed through the screen. What about you? She finally asked, will you keep stepping back like you said today? I stared at that message for a long time. I knew very clearly, this was the moment when it would be easiest to say something that sounded nice but had no real weight. Like, no, I'll wait for you. It's okay, I can adapt. I had said those kinds of things too many times before, so I typed, I won't retreat to the point of disappearing overnight. I'll see if you take even a small step forward. If you do, then we can still move forward together, little by little. If not, I'll step back to a place where I feel comfortable and stop there. And then we'll see, from a distance, whether we still want to keep going. Chapter 8. After sending that, I put my phone aside. This time, she didn't reply, and I didn't wait. I turned off the lights and lay down on the bed. The room fell into darkness. All I could hear was the occasional sound of cars outside the window, and my own heartbeat gradually settling into a steady rhythm. At that moment, I suddenly realized something had clearly changed. Before, when conversations like this happened, I would immediately fall into panic, thinking about how to fix things, how to make it up to her. Now, for the first time, I fell asleep peacefully. No dreams of arguments, no dreams of breaking up. I only dreamed that I was standing in front of a new matchmaking screen, my finger hovering over the Start Game button. No one beside me urging me on, no one marked as offline. I could take my time, think it through, and press it only when I was ready. Now it was her turn to feel uneasy. Turns out, I wasn't always there waiting for her. Friday night, I got off work on time for once. The streetlights outside the company had just turned on. and there was that relaxed, end-of-work atmosphere in the air. I didn't go home. Instead, I grabbed a sandwich from the convenience store downstairs and headed to the 24-hour cafe nearby with my laptop. A corner seat with a power outlet. Air conditioning at just the right temperature, it was the perfect in-between spot. I opened my laptop and logged into the game. The moment I put on my headphones and started typing, my mental state felt sharper than it had all afternoon in meetings. David sent a voice message. George God, you grinding tonight? Season's about to end. Yeah, I said, taking a sip of iced Americano. If I don't climb now, my account's gonna get dragged into hell tier by you deadweights. The first match started. Mid lane was playing like it was New Year's, throwing out skills like handing out red packets. I was fully focused, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. Suddenly, my phone buzzed beside the keyboard. A message popped up on the screen. Willow, what are you doing? Time, 9 p.m. That kind of question used to appear several times a day. Over the past week, she had rarely initiated like this. I glanced at it out of the corner of my eye. The team fight was at a critical moment. If I picked up my phone now, my teammates would probably report me for AFK on the spot. I clenched my jaw and flipped the phone face down. George, give me some CC, David shouted. What are you doing? Coming. I executed a full combo, barely turning the fight around. Only when the victory screen flashed did I reach for my phone. There was another message. Are you there? Time, 9:02 p.m. I opened the chat and typed, yeah, just finished a match. What's up on your end? After typing it, I paused, then deleted the second half, changed it to, yeah, just finished a match. Less than 10 seconds later, she replied, oh. Followed immediately by read. I frowned slightly. Before, I would send, I'm here, and she'd reply with, busy. Now it was her turn to ask, are you there? I said yes, and she replied with, oh. What goes around comes around, almost too precisely. I was about to ask, how was your day? When a call notification suddenly popped up at the top of the screen. Willow, voice call. I froze for a moment. She rarely called me. Most of the time, it was just text, short, concise, like answering reading comprehension questions. Chapter 9. The call timer kept circling down. I glanced at the screen, then at the game lobby. David had already queued up the next match. Hurry up, one more and we're done. I answered the call, taking one side of my headset off. Hey, it was noisy on her end, faint sounds of kids crying, parents talking in the background. You're playing games? Willow's voice sounded a little cold, deliberately lowered. I glanced at the screen. I didn't want to lie. Yeah, about to start the second match. There was a brief pause. Then go ahead and play. I was going to tell you about today. Her voice carried a slight rasp. But it's fine now. Before I could respond, she hung up. The beep of the disconnected call rang sharply in my ear. I stared at the ended call screen for a couple of seconds. David shouted through voice chat. George, get ready. Where are you? I took a breath and put my phone aside. I'm here. After this one, I'm done. The second match went terribly. My hands felt clumsy. I missed several skills. The enemy snowballed hard and pushed to our base in 10 minutes. David cursed. What's wrong with you today? Didn't you just say you were in good form? I just took a call, I said. I closed the game and shut my laptop. My voice sounded a bit hoarse. My form went offline. On the way home, shops along the street were closing one by one, their lights going dark. My phone stayed silent, too silent. As I walked upstairs, the motion sensor lights in the hallway flicked on, harsh and bright. I entered my apartment, tossed my keys into the basket by the door, and was halfway through changing my shoes when my phone buzzed. Willow, are you done? Time, exactly 11 p.m. I'm home, I replied. Soon after, she sent a voice message. Do you have time? I just left the parents' meeting. I'm not in a great mood. Can we talk now? This time, she didn't just send text. I tapped and called her. Hey, this time, it was quiet on her end. Only the faint ticking of a clock. Just finished class, I asked. Long finished, she said. Her voice was low. I just got scolded by a parent. They said I don't know how to teach, that I'm wasting their money, and that someone as impatient as me shouldn't even be a teacher. She let out a small laugh. It wasn't a happy one. I really wanted to argue back, but I remembered you used to tell me to just endure it, it'll pass. So I held it in, and after holding it in, I came back and wanted to talk to you, and you told me just finished a match. I leaned back on the couch, tilting my head up, staring at the ceiling. You called when I was in the middle of a team fight, I said. If I had answered then, my teammates would have all died. She suddenly asked, does it matter that your teammates die? The question was direct. I stayed silent for a few seconds. To them, it matters. They're taking the game seriously too. Willow let out a faint laugh. And what about me? I just walked out of a parent's office. My hands were shaking. I texted you, asked what you were doing, you said you just finished a match. I thought about it, then I called you, and you told me you were about to start another one. She paused. Suddenly, I felt like, maybe I'm not even as important as your teammates in a game. The phone pressed against my ear. I rested my forehead against my hand. You weren't like this before, she said. You used to reply to me even while gaming. Her tone felt like she was flipping through old accounts. You used to hear something off in my voice and the first thing you'd ask was what's wrong. Now you rarely ask. Didn't you say you were willing to understand me? So why did you suddenly become like this? Chapter 10. Her voice wasn't loud, but there was a faint nasal tone to it. I closed my eyes for a moment and said, it's not like I don't understand you now. It's just that I've started understanding myself too. Before, no matter when you messaged me, I would always reply immediately, even if I had something else going on. I got used to putting you before everything, even before myself. I paused, then continued, but the result of that was, every time you didn't reply, even once, it would hit me hard. I don't want to put myself back in that state again. The line went quiet. Only the sound of our breathing remained. After half a minute, she spoke softly. So now, it's my turn to feel that way. When you felt bad before, I didn't even know. It was like she had just realized something. Because you never said anything. You always just said, it's fine, I understand. That line, I get tired too, you never said it before. Her voice sounded a little unsteady. When you suddenly said it, I got a little scared. Scared that one day, after saying you're tired, you'll just leave. I straightened up on the couch, my back tensing unconsciously. Do you know what I was afraid of back then? I asked. I was afraid that if one day I really left, you'd just reply with, got it. There was silence on her end. A faint creak of a bed. She probably shifted position. After getting scolded by that parent today, when I texted you, she paused, as if struggling against her own habits. I actually, really wanted to hear you say, you've worked hard. Her voice dropped lower. I stood outside the office for quite a while. I told myself, you would definitely reply and ask me what's wrong. But you said you were playing a game. You told me to wait. She took a breath. In that moment, I suddenly understood how you used to feel. All those messages you sent me every day. I would just reply, busy, and leave it at that. And now you gave me a taste of it. Pretty fair, I guess. I wasn't trying to get back at you, I said. I know, she said softly. It's just, that gap in feeling is real. I was standing in the hallway, looking at your message, about to start another match, and suddenly realized, maybe I'm not always in the front position in your mind. And that made me panic. The word panic sounded unfamiliar coming from Willow. She had always been someone who used words like, it's fine, it's okay, not bad, to compress all her emotions into something small and manageable. Do you know why I always say I'm busy? She suddenly shifted. Growing up, my mom was like that. When I tried to talk to her, she would either say she was busy, or there's nothing worth talking about. Over time, I started to feel like expressing emotions is troublesome, so I learned to reply simply, less talking means less trouble. She gave a faint, self-deprecating laugh. Now that you're not rushing to take care of my emotions anymore, there's suddenly an empty space in my life, and today I realized that space is actually pretty cold. Listening to her, I felt a slight ache in my chest, mixed with an odd sense of calm. So it's not that you don't care, you just don't know how to say it, I said quietly. And it's not that I don't care about you either. I just used to say too much. I said everything that should and shouldn't be said, comfort, reassurance, all ahead of time. The two of us, one used to swallowing all words, the other used to saying everything out loud. It sounded like balance, but in reality, one side was blocked, and the other was overflowing. Chapter 11. So what about now? Willow asked. Right now, do you feel like what I did today counts as me suddenly logging back in? I thought for a moment. I'd say, you finally sent a signal, even if it just flashed once on the minimap. I'm not going to forget everything that happened before just because you wanted to talk today, but because you're willing to speak up. I'll have a bit more patience with you, as long as that patience is something I can actually afford. On the other end, she let out a soft breath. Then, will there be a day when you just delete the game altogether? Her question came a bit suddenly. What game? I asked. She said, us. You said you're tired. If you decide to quit, would it actually be that hard for you? I could hear the probing in her voice. I said, deleting an account is actually pretty hard. I answered seriously. I've played for so long. I've bought so many skins. I've practiced so many characters. I wouldn't just quit because of one or two bad matches. But if one day I realize that no matter how I play, it's all frustration and no enjoyment, then I'd consider it. She asked quietly. Then right now, do you still feel any enjoyment? The question was calm, but direct. I leaned back on the couch and thought for a long time. Before today, yes. When you called earlier, I hesitated about whether to pick up. In that moment, I suddenly realized something. For the first time, when you were feeling the worst, I was the first person you thought of. I just didn't catch it. I said it honestly. That part, I feel bad about it too. The line went so quiet it almost felt like I could hear a heartbeat. After a while, she spoke softly. Then, can you give me some time? So I can try to get used to this when I feel bad. Instead of just telling myself it's fine, I learned to tell you I'm not okay. I can't promise I'll get it right every time, but I'll try. She paused, then asked, can you wait a little longer? If this were before, I would have immediately said, of course, I'm not in a hurry. This time, I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I said, I can wait, but I won't keep charging forward anymore. I'll stay where I am. If you take a step, I'll move one step toward you. If you don't, I'll just treat this as a place to rest. And when the day comes where you're too tired to keep walking, and I can't move forward anymore either, then we'll sit down and talk about how to walk the rest of the road. She let out a soft Then, can you stay and talk with me for a while tonight? Her tone carried a hint of hesitation, and something unfamiliar, almost like shy affection. I really had a hard day. She finally said it out loud. I'm not okay. Yeah, I said. I glanced at the computer on the desk, reached out, and unplugged the power cable. Not playing tonight. I'll stay with you. As the screen went dark, I felt something strange. Not the kind of reluctance that comes from giving up my hobby for her. More like, for the first time, I had found a balance between myself and her. I wasn't the always available, instant reply emotional support anymore, but at the moment she finally said, I'm not okay. I was still willing to put down the keyboard and pick up the phone. The difference was, this time, I wasn't doing it to prove how much I loved her. It was because I knew I deserved to be met the same way too. Chapter 12. She started taking a step forward, and I stopped leaving myself behind. Over the next few days, it felt like we were adapting to an updated version of a game. The interface looked mostly the same, but a lot of the mechanics had quietly changed. Monday night, I worked overtime as usual. It was past 10 when I came out of the meeting room, my mind tangled up from all the requirement changes. I had just sat back down at my desk when my phone lit up. Willow, still at the office? I paused. Before, she would usually ask something like, what are you doing or are you busy? This time, it was a very specific question. Still here, I replied. You. Typing appeared almost immediately. Just got home. That parent came to talk to me again today, but it wasn't as harsh as last time. She added a small relieved emoji. I stared at those words, feeling something subtle shift inside me. She actually brought up her emotions on her own, and even added an emoji. I asked, how are you feeling now? She paused for a few seconds, then replied, a bit tired, but better, because today I knew you would pick up the call. I looked at that sentence and let out a quiet breath. I typed, then next time you feel bad, call me again. I can't promise I'll always answer instantly, but I'll try. And if I can't, I'll let you know. She replied with a simple okay. Just one word, but it didn't feel cold anymore. That night, I didn't play games. My computer was still on, with unfinished code sitting in the IDE, but I placed my phone beside the keyboard and talked to her for a full hour. We talked about her students, about that coworker of hers who complained every day but never quit, about small moments from her childhood when her mother ignored her. Several times, I almost said, it's okay, you're already doing great, but I swallowed those words. Instead, I said, that sounds really hard. You must have really wanted someone on your side back then. There was a brief pause on her end. Then she replied, yeah, now I have someone. At that moment, I suddenly felt like all those times I said I was tired weren't for nothing. But a new update doesn't mean all the bugs disappear. Wednesday night, after working late, I got home. As soon as I walked in, I received a message. Willow, I'm a bit tired today, so I won't chat tonight. Good night. I looked at those two lines, and my chest tightened instinctively. Before, when she said she was busy, I would immediately reply, then get some rest early. Now, I stared at the screen for half a minute. I asked myself, do I genuinely want to care for her, or am I just trying to ease my own anxiety? After thinking it through, I simply replied, okay, get some rest early. Good night. That was it. No extra probing. No, what's wrong? After sending the message, I put my phone on the coffee table, opened my computer, and queued up for a couple of matches as usual. That night, my performance was unusually good. Maybe because there was no longer that underlying anxiety of someone might message me at any moment. After my last game, I showered and got into bed. My phone screen was lit. There was an unread message. Willow, why did you agree so quickly today? Sent 15 minutes after her good night. You used to ask what was wrong. I couldn't help but smile. Didn't you say you were tired? Then I believe you. I believe you can take care of yourself, and I believe if you can't, you'll come to me. She was silent for a long time. So long I thought she had fallen asleep. Then she replied, "What if sometimes I still want to hide and deal with things on my own? Will you think I've gone AFK again?" I looked at that for a while, then replied, "No. As long as it's not forever. As long as sometimes you log in and tell me I'm not okay. That's enough for me. I'll have times when I want to be alone too. In the future, if you ask what I'm doing, I might say I'm playing games, and I won't add, I'll stop right away. That doesn't mean you're not important. It just means I have other things to take care of too. A few minutes later, she sent a facepalm emoji. Then she said, "The way you talk now is kind of scary." I paused. "What's scary about it?" She said, "Very honest. I used to think someone as mild and soft-spoken as you wouldn't tell me this many truths. Now everything you say doesn't sound like you're trying to sweet-talk me. Instead, it leaves me not quite knowing how to respond." I stared at the words mild and soft-spoken, and couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 13, I said. "Then take your time to learn. I used to learn how to take care of your feelings. Now it's your turn to learn how to hear my honesty." That night, we talked until almost 1 a.m. Not sweet or overly affectionate, but real, in a slightly awkward, unfamiliar way. The next day, I was called into my manager's office. The new version had issues. The system crashed for a short period after going live. My manager slammed the desk. "How did this pass testing? Who signed off before release?" My name was clearly written on the last line. At that moment, only one thought crossed my mind. I'm going to be working overtime again. When I came out of the office, I returned to my desk, staring at the pile of error logs with a headache. I felt extremely frustrated. Before, in situations like this, I only had two default responses: either bottle it up, or jump into a game and empty my mind. My phone lay at the corner of the desk, face down. 10 minutes later, I suddenly flipped it over. The screen showed our chat from last night. I stared at her message, "The way you talk now is kind of scary," and hesitated for a few seconds. Then I did something I had never done before. I texted her first. "I got scolded by my manager today. I'm in a really bad mood right now. No build up. No, are you busy?" As I sent those messages, I actually felt a bit uneasy. I knew she might be teaching, or helping students. If she didn't reply, it would be completely reasonable. I put my phone back down and forced myself to keep looking at the logs. About 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Willow, in class." Sneaking a quick reply. "I'll listen to you vent properly after class." She added an angry emoji at the end. Looking at those few lines, I suddenly felt like the air in the office wasn't so suffocating anymore. Her class would end in about an hour and a half. I didn't keep checking the time. I didn't send follow-ups. I just continued fixing bugs, syncing with the front end, handling rollback issues. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed again. "Class is over." Right after that, a voice call request came in. I put on my headphones and answered. "Hey." On her end, I could hear kids running in the hallway, co-workers chatting and laughing. "You said you got scolded?" Willow asked directly. I briefly explained what happened. She listened quietly. She didn't immediately say, "That's just part of your job." Nor did she say, "You should have paid more attention." When I finished, she only said one thing. "That must have felt really bad. If it were me, getting questioned like that face-to-face by a parent, I'd want to slam the door too." I leaned back in my chair and gave a quiet She continued, "You're allowed to be angry, but don't turn that anger into self-doubt. There's responsibility on your side for the issue going live, but it's not all on you." She paused, then said, "If this had happened to me, what would you say to me?" I answered honestly. I'd probably say, "You already did your best." I'd go through what could be improved, and what was actually the other side's issue. Then I'd say, "Go eat something good, get some rest, and deal with it tomorrow." She replied slowly. "Then say those exact same things to yourself. You're so patient with me. Be fair to yourself too." On her end, she was probably walking back to her office. Her footsteps echoed through the hallway, the noise gradually fading into quiet. Then she said, "When you sent me those messages earlier, I really wanted to reply right away, but I was standing at the front of the classroom. I looked at all those students, and suddenly realized they need me too." She let out a small laugh. "In that moment, I understood what you meant that day when you said, 'I have other things to take care of too.' So I finished the class first, and then came to you. That way, it's responsible for you, for me, and for the students." Chapter 14. The hand I was holding the mouse with loosened slightly. I said, "So it's not that you don't care. You just sorted out the cause and effect." She said, "I do care. I just wasn't used to saying it before. Now I'm slowly learning to say it in a way that doesn't feel so heavy. And you don't have to carry everything on your own without saying anything anymore. When you speak up, I might not be able to handle it perfectly every time, but at least I'll reach out. Whether you reach out or not is your choice." Whether I catch it or not is mine. That makes it fairer. We quietly smiled at each other through the microphone. At that moment, I suddenly felt a strong sense of reality. I used to have this imagined version of love. She could understand me completely, and without me saying a word, she would give me exactly what I needed. Now I realize the real version is much clumsier. We both have to learn to speak up, to express ourselves, and to see ourselves while seeing each other. Before hanging up, she asked me, "Are you still playing games tonight?" I thought for a moment and replied, "Probably for a bit, but not like before, as an escape. Today, a game is just a game. If you want to talk, just text me. If I can pause, I will. If I can't, I'll let you know. If you're tired too, just go to sleep. No one has to bend themselves out of shape for the other." She softly hummed in acknowledgement and said, "Then later, remember to tell me if you're feeling a little better today. I want to know." She added that last sentence. After hanging up, I stared at my phone screen in a daze for a while. It turns out that the kind of care I've always wanted doesn't have to come in the form of instant replies or always being available on demand. It can also look like this. I'm dealing with work, and she's teaching her class. We both have our own battlefields. But at some point, she'll remember that I got scolded today, and she'll want to know if I'm feeling a little better later. And me, I'm finally willing, when I feel bad, to send out that first signal, not to move anyone, just so I won't keep leaving myself behind. Chapter 15. For the first time, she stepped into the world where I grind monsters and asked if I could still fit her into my future. That weekend, David suddenly dropped a message in the group chat. "Guys, there's an offline match this Sunday. Prizes aren't much, but there's free drinks and pizza. Anyone coming?" He attached a screenshot of a net cafe poster. It looked tacky in a kind of nostalgic way. I was about to reply pass. My finger hovered over the screen, circling for a moment, and in the end I still typed, "I'm in." David replied instantly with a voice message. "Oh, George God finally coming out of retirement. Bring your girlfriend to watch, she can cheer for you." I shot back, "She's never had a good opinion of me playing games. Then all the more reason to bring her." David always spoke faster than he thought. He added, "Otherwise in her mind you'll always be that immature guy who has no time and only plays games." That stung a little. After ending the voice chat, I stared at my chat window with Willow for a full 5 minutes, hesitating. In the end, I still typed, "There's a small offline match on Sunday. I'll be playing a couple of rounds. Do you want to come watch?" After sending it, I flipped my phone face down on the table. I told myself, if she comes and sees me gaming, she might get even more annoyed. If she doesn't come, at least I know I invited her. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Where is it?" I froze for 2 seconds, then replied, "The Net Cafe at Xinghe Plaza. Starts at 2 p.m. I'll wait for you at the MRT entrance at 12:30. Want to grab lunch together first?" She didn't reply right away. I thought that was the end of it. Until close to 10 p.m., my phone lit up. "Okay," just one word. Looking at that "okay," I actually felt a bit nervous. At noon on Sunday, I arrived at the MRT entrance early. The autumn wind carried a slight chill. I zipped my jacket all the way up, rehearsing in my head. If she frowns and says the Net Cafe is too noisy, I'll say we can leave soon. If she stays cold and quiet, I'll just tell some random work stories. But at 12:25, when that familiar figure appeared in the crowd, all my prepared lines collapsed. Willow had her hair in a low ponytail, wearing a light blue hoodie with a beige trench coat over it. Completely different from her usual professional outfit for teaching, she looked a few years younger. "You're early," I said. She walked over carrying a canvas tote. The corner of some exercise books peeked out. "I was grading papers on the train," she said, giving the bag a small shake. "Didn't want to be late." I checked the time, 5 minutes earlier than planned. "Come on, let's eat first." I took her to a casual restaurant on the 3rd floor of the mall. While ordering, I asked, "Beef or chicken?" "Chicken." She looked down at the menu. Then she asked, "Will there be a lot of people at the match later?" "Probably 10 to 20 teams," I said. Then I added, "Basically a bunch of half-burnt-out office workers trying to prove they still have some skills left on the weekend." She laughed lightly. "You've gotten more savage with your words. Trained by life," I said. During the meal, our conversation was ordinary. Students, overtime at work, how we each recovered after getting scolded that day. The only thing not ordinary was that she spoke more than before. She would bring up her own feelings, and even ask, "Did you feel a bit better later that day?" Halfway through the meal, she suddenly looked up at me. "When you're playing later, is there anything I should pay attention to?" I put on a serious face on purpose. "Don't scream above 90 decibels. Don't suddenly yell, 'What are you doing?' when my teammates mess up. And most importantly," I paused, "don't ask survey-style questions while I'm in a team fight. Like, 'Are you going to keep playing games in the future?'" She burst out laughing. "Then when can I ask that?" I took a bite of food. After the team fight ends, depending on whether we win or lose. If we win, I'll be in a good mood, so my answer will be gentler. If we lose, I might be more honest. After eating, we headed to the net cafe. There was already a crowd gathered outside, banners up, loud music blasting. Willow stood at the edge of the crowd, frowning slightly. It smells strong. Inside, cigarette smoke mixed with coffee, and the lingering scent of people who had been sitting there too long without washing their hair. If it gets too much, you can go walk around the mall, I said. I'll text you when I'm done. She glanced at me. Since I'm here, I'll watch. Maybe I'll finally understand what exactly you've been hiding in here. She said it very directly. I didn't argue. I just smiled. All right, then watch carefully. When it was our team's turn to sit down, the referee called out, "Back to bronze rank, get ready." Chapter 16. That name was something David came up with on a whim. It sounded unreliable from the start. I sat down at my station. The moment I put on my headset and rested my hands on the keyboard and mouse, everything inside me went quiet. That familiar sense of focus pulled me out of the noisy crowd. Matchmaking. Draft. Champion select. David asked. "George, you still playing jungle?" "Yeah. It's the role I'm most comfortable with." I tilted my head and glanced toward the spectator area. Through the glass window, Willow stood in the back row, holding her coat, her gaze directed toward me. I couldn't see her expression clearly, but at least, she wasn't looking down at her phone. Once the match started, I fell completely into rhythm. Control vision, secure objectives, relieve pressure on the losing lane. Midway through, bot lane got crushed. The enemy support typed mockery in all chat. David cursed in voice chat. "That guy's mouth is disgusting. Ignore it." I kept my eyes on the minimap. "In 4 minutes we take the next Baron. Don't force fights. I'll finish this jungle rotation, then help bot lane trade back the tower." As I kept calling the shots, I suddenly drifted for a moment. This feeling, balancing between calming teammates and finding a breakthrough, was a bit like what I used to do in relationships, except in games. Sometimes your teammates trust you. In real life, no matter how much you say, sometimes the other person still doesn't hear you. The first match lasted nearly 30 minutes. We made a difficult comeback. When we destroyed the enemy nexus, there was even a bit of applause from the side. I took off my headset and instinctively looked toward the spectator area. Willow was looking at me. She didn't clap or cheer like the younger crowd, she just gave me a small nod. There was something in her eyes at that moment. Not quite admiration, but definitely not disdain. We lost the second match. The enemy jungler had too much control of the tempo. I misjudged several times and got counter-ganked. David kept complaining. I didn't say anything. A loss is a loss. When I stood up from my seat, my mind was still stuck in those last few team fights. As I walked out of the player area, the glass door opened, and the noise rushed back in all at once. Willow walked toward me, tired. She didn't ask whether we won or lost. Didn't say, "How did you play like that?" That was her first question. I paused for a second. Not bad. At least better than getting scolded by my boss. She walked beside me and said softly, "During those matches just now, your face was completely tense. You know, you looked exactly like you did that night working overtime, sitting at your desk writing code. The same expression." I smiled a little. "So even when I escape, I do it seriously," she said. "I used to think when you played games, it was just because you didn't want to deal with people." She paused, then continued. "After watching today, I realized you're actually pretty busy in there too. You have to think about the bigger picture, calm your teammates, and not mess up yourself. In the game, you're more like an adult than you are in real life." That caught me off guard. I said, "Didn't you used to say men who play games are like children?" She said, "Yes, but at least you're a kid who knows how to read the map." She glanced at me. "Not like my mom. When she's upset, she only sees herself." We walked out of the net cafe and into the mall, leaving the noise behind us. As the escalator moved downward, she leaned lightly against the railing. "The things you said in the game just now." She looked up at me. "Don't keep staring at mistakes, look at what's next. Yelling at your teammates now won't help. Hold this wave first." She lowered her voice slightly. "Those could apply to me too. Before, every time you showed concern for me, if I replied with 'I'm busy,' you'd start reflecting on yourself. Now you say that I can get tired too. Before, I thought you were a bit annoying. Now I think, you were reminding me not to focus only on my own emotions. To check whether your teammate is still there." Chapter 17. The elevator doors opened on the first floor, and the wind from the plaza rushed in. We walked slowly toward the MRT entrance. She suddenly said, "You looked pretty cool just now, during the match." I almost thought I misheard. "Say that again," I said. She shot me a look. "Don't push your luck. It's already not easy for me to compliment you once." The wind blew past, and she pulled her scarf up a little. "Let me ask you something," she said, slowing her pace. "If we keep being together in the future, will you still play games like that?" "What do you mean by like that?" I asked. She said. Playing whenever you have time, playing when you're in a bad mood, and playing even more when you're happy, I countered. Isn't that true for anyone? She didn't smile. I'm asking seriously. I straightened my expression. I'll still play, but I won't use it as my only outlet anymore. You said you're learning to speak about what bothers you. Then I also need to learn to take some time out of games and give it to real life, including giving it to you and to myself, she said softly. Don't you already have your game? You said at least there. Your teammates need you. I looked at her. That was before. Back then, I felt like no one needed me in real life. Now, at least there's one person who will ask me, are you feeling a little better today, when I've had a rough time? So I'm not in such a rush to go looking for that sense of being needed anymore. She fell silent for a moment. Then what about me? You said you're making time for real life. Am I part of that reality? She asked it slowly, as if afraid of hearing an answer she didn't want. Of course you are. I paused for 2 seconds, then added. But you're not all of it, and you shouldn't be. You have your students, your classes, your mom, your own emotions, and I have my work, my games, my friends, and my own emotions. We're just putting all these pieces together to see if we can form something that doesn't feel awkward. If either of us has to give up a huge part, the final picture won't look good. She listened, the corner of her lips moving slightly. Then if sometimes I still seem distant, she looked ahead. Will you start spiraling again on your own? I will, I said. I was honest, but not endlessly like before. I'll ask you once first. If you say, I don't want to talk right now, but I'll tell you later, then I'll wait. If you don't say anything, I'll set a limit for myself. Once that time passes, I won't keep chasing after it. I'll shift my attention back to myself, play a couple of games, go for a run, whatever. But I won't keep waiting for you while blaming myself at the same time. We paused at the MRT entrance. She lowered her head and nudged the edge of a floor tile with her shoe. George, she called my name. Then what about me? Can I also set a limit for myself? For example, I can tolerate you going online and playing for several hours without replying to messages. Once it goes past that time, I'll allow myself to be upset. I won't keep holding it in and saying I'm fine. I looked at her and almost smiled. Of course, that's called a two-way boundary. We can adjust it together, like tuning sensitivity in a game. She laughed. Can you stop making every metaphor about games? Occupational hazard. I shrugged. What can I say? Your boyfriend's a jungler, she suddenly asked. Then what am I? A teammate? A spectator? Or that person standing on the side who doesn't understand anything but claps occasionally? She asked seriously. I thought for a moment, then said, you're not a teammate, nor are you a spectator. You're the fountain I can refill at when I recall to base. She paused for a second and replied. So you're treating me like your mana bar? Chapter 18, I explained. I see you as a place that, just by thinking of it, gives me a bit of peace. Whether I play well or badly, I come back. Before, coming back meant reporting in, or asking for comfort. In the future, it'll be because I want to come back. She lowered her head and smiled. Then I'll have to try a little harder. At the very least, I shouldn't make it feel like you've accidentally walked into the enemy fountain every time you come back. As soon as she said that, she laughed first. You've started using my language, I said, the corner of my mouth lifting slightly. She took a deep breath. George, she called my name again. Then would you be willing? She paused, like she was pushing away those old habits of it's fine. Never mind. Then she said, would you be willing to put me into your life plans for the next few years? Not the vague kind, but the kind you actually write down when you sit seriously with a notebook. I looked at her, serious, a little nervous, and suddenly felt that drifting place inside me settle. I said, I can try to write that, like ranked games. Lock in the hero first, then choose the path. But there's one thing, I don't want to queue for this alone anymore. If you're willing to queue here, then don't keep showing as offline. If you're unsure, you can spectate first, but don't blame me if one day I decide to start a new match. She looked at me quietly. After a moment, she nodded slowly. Okay, then let's write a draft together first. If it's not good, we'll revise it. She paused, then added. This time, it's not just you staying up all night revising it alone. It's my turn to pick up the pen too. The wind from the arriving train rushed up from underground. I watched her walk toward the ticket gates. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out. It was a message from her. You worked hard today, not just playing the game, but also showing me your world. I looked up. She was standing by the gate, turning back to look at me. I raised my phone to show her and nodded. At that moment, I knew it clearly. We hadn't gone back to how things used to be. If anything, it felt more like we had finally admitted something. This game was never about one person carrying the other to rank up. It's about two people, each with their own flaws, trying to learn how, on the same map, not to drain themselves, nor each other. until there's not a single bit of mana left. Chapter 19. Life is the ranked match that never ends, and we finally stand on the same side. On the day the new season update dropped, the game icon changed. I opened my computer and stared at the reskin login screen, suddenly feeling a little dazed. My phone lay beside the keyboard. Its screen lit up. Willow had sent. Coming over for dinner tonight. My mom made that braised pork you praised last time. She said she'll give you another chance, see if this programmer can support her daughter in the future. That last line was obviously her mom's original words, copied over exactly. I looked at the messages and smiled, a little helplessly. I replied, "Does your mom know her daughter can support herself?" She replied, "She does, but she says traditions matter. You still have to put on a performance." Reading that, I didn't feel offended at all. Before, I would have instinctively pushed back in my head, am I getting married or applying for a job? Now I understood something more clearly. I wasn't here to prove how capable I was. I was here to see whether it was worth tying a part of my life to this person and her family. I'll be there in a bit. I'll finish a match first, then head over. After sending that, I put my phone down, put on my headset, and clicked Start Game. David pulled me into a party, saying we should grind during the double XP event. As soon as the team formed, he shouted in voice chat, "George God, heard you're heading into the marriage queue soon. Win this match and I'll give you a big wedding gift." "Don't jinx it," I said. I controlled my character toward Lane. "If we lose this one, I'll treat it as a rehearsal for life's unexpected twists." We played seriously, so seriously that I forgot to check my phone. By the time we barely secured the win, I took off my headset and saw several unread messages lighting up my screen. Willow had sent, "Be careful on your way. Don't forget your mask. My mom just asked when you'll arrive." I said it depends, and she gave me a look. She said don't learn from me. I laughed for a while, then replied, "Then tell her he'll recall to base soon. Wait for me. I closed the game, packed up, and headed out. The wind downstairs was strong. I hunched my shoulders as I walked toward the MRT station. Just as I reached the entrance, my phone buzzed. She asked, "Were you playing just now?" Be honest. I just finished a trial class. My head was a mess, and suddenly I really wanted to hear the sound of your keyboard. Then I thought you might be in a match, so I held back from calling. The word held back, coming from her, felt a bit ironic. She used to hold back all her emotions. Now she would tell me exactly what she had just held back. I replied, "Yeah, I was playing, but I logged off right after. No overtime tonight, saving it for your mom's inspection." After that, I added, "If you want to call in the future, just call. Whether I pick up is my decision. Don't decide for me." The train was crowded. My phone felt warm in my hand from the heat. A few minutes later, she replied, "Okay, then when you're in a really bad mood, remember to send me a message first, 'I'm not feeling well,' before you go play. Otherwise, it's easy for me to think you only need ranked games, not me." I rubbed my forehead, realizing this jungler of mine could no longer pretend to be a solo player. By the time I arrived at her place, the living room was already filled with the smell of food. Willow's mother came out of the kitchen wearing an apron and glanced at me. "You're here?" Her tone was as blunt as ever. "Sit. Eat first. I'll question you after." "Hello, Auntie." I obediently sat down at the table. Willow sat across from me and placed a piece of braised pork into my bowl. "Try it. It simmered for a long time today." Her mom snorted. "When she cooks for herself, she never takes this long." Willow lowered her head and smiled. "Well, it depends on the person. If someone's willing to eat it, then it's worth simmering longer." It sounded casual, but something in my chest tightened sharply. I knew she wasn't just talking about the dish. The questions at the dinner table felt a bit like a formal process. "What's your current salary? Where do you plan to settle down? Any plans to buy a house? Do you want kids in the future?" Chapter 20. I answered each question one by one. I didn't try to flatter her, nor did I act like "your daughter is worth me sacrificing everything." I simply laid out my current situation and future plans, calmly and piece by piece. I won't throw all my savings into buying a house at once, and I won't switch to a job with more overtime just to make quick money for marriage. I'll go a bit slower, but I'll make sure that when Willow and I live together, we're not surviving every day by exhausting ourselves. I want us to have some breathing room. When I finished that sentence, I saw her mom frown. "You young people always talk about breathing room. If you're capable, just earn more money." Who wasn't tired when they were young? I was tired too. I acknowledged that, but I don't want exhaustion to be the only way of living. I have co-workers who drop dead at their desks before they even turn 30. I don't want a day where Willow is standing outside the ICU, telling my mom he worked very hard, while not even knowing whether she's crying from grievance or heartbreak. Willow's chopsticks paused for a moment. I didn't look at her. I just looked at the bowl in front of me. What I want is a kind of life that both of us can carry, not one person bearing everything, while the other stays silently used to it. The room went quiet for a few seconds. The TV host's voice faded into near silence. Finally, her mom let out a sigh. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. At least you understand your current job isn't a guaranteed iron rice bowl. If one day you lose your job, what will you do? I answered seriously. Find the next one. If I can't, I'll take freelance work. If that still doesn't work, I'll apply for delivery or courier jobs. I don't think there's any hierarchy in earning a living. I just remind myself not to let us live in a constant comparison of who's suffering more. Under the table, Willow's hand brushed against mine. Her fingers hooked lightly for a second, then withdrew. That dinner went more smoothly than I expected. Her mom still sounded picky, but her chopsticks never slowed down. After dinner, I helped clean up. As I stood by the sink rinsing dishes, she suddenly walked over beside me. Were you improvising that speech just now? She lowered her voice. It sounded very, you. Half of it was improvised, I said. I smiled. The other half, I've thought about it many times over the years while working overtime. She leaned against the counter, rolling up her sleeves a little. You had these thoughts before too? Yeah, it's just back then. You were busy telling me you understood, and I was busy telling you I was fine. Neither of us had time to explain our own side properly. She didn't say anything. She reached out, took a bowl I had just rinsed, and carefully dried it with a cloth. Then she said softly, "Then let's talk slowly from now on, until you no longer feel like you could be left behind at any moment. Until I no longer feel like sharing what's in my heart is a burden to others." By the time we finished washing up, it was almost 10:30 p.m. Her mom was on the sofa watching a drama, angrily criticizing the male lead. When she saw me come out, she waved her hand. "You young people go talk in her room. Don't sit here watching me get mad." After saying that, she added, "Go home early. Don't keep my daughter up too late." Willow nudged me. "Let's go." In her room, lesson notes were spread across the desk. A small low table by the bed held a cup of freshly brewed tea. "Sit." She pointed to the edge of the bed and pulled a chair for herself, sitting across from me. "I want to discuss something with you." "So formal," I said, leaning against the wall. "Go on," she said. "I want to take something that used to stay only in my head and write it down." She took out a blank notebook from the drawer. The cover was simple, with just a few words, "Future Plans." She opened to the first page and wrote a title, "Draft of This Game, Chapter 21. I couldn't help but complain. And you say you haven't been influenced by me. Cut the nonsense." She shot me a glance. "Didn't you say you'd try to fit me into your plans for the next few years? Then today, we start writing the first draft." She spoke as she wrote. "For example, within 1 year, we each stabilize in our own jobs. You see if you can transfer to a project that isn't so draining. I'll see if I can cut down some meaningless overtime. Save some money, but not to the point where even breathing feels stressful. Another example, within 2 years, we look into whether there's a suitable place to live. If we can't afford to buy, we rent first. If we find that living together is worse than now, then at least we discover the problem early." At this point, she paused. "Don't get nervous. I'm not setting some rigid life flag here. I just think, since you don't want to charge forward alone anymore, then I'll step down from the spectator seat and stand beside you, even if at the beginning, all I can send are clumsy signals." She looked up at me. "Didn't you say the worst thing is a teammate who stays offline? Then I'll try to stay online. Being online doesn't mean I can always cooperate perfectly, but at least you won't be shouting into an empty map anymore." I leaned against the wall, watching her write. Every stroke of her pen was careful, just like when she wrote words on the classroom board. "Then I'll add something too," I said. I reached for the pen. She pushed the notebook toward me. Under what she wrote, I added a few lines. "No matter how this game turns out in the future, we won't use 'I understand' and 'it's fine' as shields to avoid things anymore. Whoever feels bad speaks first, and whoever speaks has the right to be treated properly." After writing, I tossed the pen back onto the table. "Sounds kind of cringy, right?" I said with a self-deprecating smile. "But right now, this kind of cringy feels more real than pretending I understand everything." She stared at those lines for a long time. "You know what?" she suddenly said. "That day when you first said I can get tired too. I went back and read all your past messages. I realized almost every time you said, 'I understand,' it was late at night. When you said, 'it's fine,' it really meant everything was fine on my side. But on your side, things just kept piling up." She pulled out a transparent folder from the bookshelf. Inside were a few printed pages of our chat history. "Why did you print that?" I asked, surprised. "To remind myself. So when I see you start saying 'it's fine' out of habit again, I'll know it's actually not fine. Starting today, I want to try a different way." She picked up her pen and wrote a small line in the margin. "Default question when something's wrong: how are you feeling right now?" Instead of, "Why are you like this again?" Looking at those words, my throat suddenly felt tight. That teaching method of yours could probably be turned into a research paper, I joked, barely holding it together. I'll test it on you first, she said. She smiled lightly, and train myself at the same time. If one day you really don't want to continue, at least when you leave, it's because we truly tried, not because you never said anything, and I never asked. We looked at each other for a while. The room wasn't brightly lit, but it was enough to see each other clearly. George, she called my name. If I seem distant again, will you still immediately go play games? I thought for a moment. I will. I didn't pretend, but it won't be my only outlet anymore. I might send you a message first, I'm not feeling great. If you reply, that's great. If you don't, I'll go play a match. When I come back, I'll check if you're there. If you're still offline, then I'll log off and go to sleep. I paused, then added, before sleeping, I'll give myself some closure, and tomorrow, I'll decide whether this match is worth queuing again. She listened, then nodded gently. Chapter 22, she said, then I'll be honest too. Sometimes, I'll still want to be alone. There will still be moments when I don't want to talk, but I'll try to tell you that I just can't say it right now. Not that I don't want to talk to you. If one day I really don't want to talk to you anymore, I'll tell you directly, and then you'll know, it's time to step back. She smiled a little. Let's not act in those kinds of scenes anymore, the ones where everything looks fine, but inside, one of us has already left halfway. It was late at night. On my way home, the game icon sat quietly on my phone screen. I didn't tap it. Just as I reached downstairs, my phone buzzed. Willow sent, text me when you get home. I want to know if you'll sleep a little better tonight. I stood at the entrance, my fingers typing a line on the screen. I'm home. And yeah, I'll sleep much better than before. After sending that, I added another line. Thanks for coming to my game today. And thanks for letting me walk into those parts of your world you never talked about before. She didn't reply immediately. About 5 or 6 minutes later, she responded, no need to thank me. You're my player, and my teammate. I used to go AFK a lot. I'll try to stay online from now on. If one day you want to log off, tell me in advance. Don't just disappear. I looked at that string of messages, and slowly, a smile formed on my lips. Before, I would have taken a screenshot and sent it to David in the game group chat. Now, I just placed my phone on the bedside table and turned off the lights. The room fell into darkness, with only a sliver of streetlight slipping through the curtains. Lying in bed, my mind didn't immediately fill with game visuals like it used to. Instead, I saw the braised pork on the dinner table, the plans she wrote in that notebook, the way her hand tightened and then loosened slightly when I said, I get tired too, and suddenly, I understood something very clearly. I wouldn't assume that just because of these conversations, we'd never argue again, never misunderstand each other. We would still have our own stubbornness, our own defense mechanisms, but at least, from the day she started learning to say, I'm not okay, from the moment I stopped using I understand to hide my own exhaustion, this game was no longer just me wandering alone on a dark map. Sometimes, she would still seem distant. Sometimes, I would still open the game and play a match or two to clear my head. The difference was, now I knew, when I closed the game, took off my headset, and looked up, there would be someone on the other side, seriously asking me, how was the match? Are you tired? And I had finally learned to answer simply, honestly, handing myself over, pretty tired, but worth it.